This country is often referred to as the Land of Blue Domes due to the prevalence of vibrant blue domes in its architecture. Today we're looking at Uzbekistan, a fascinating Central Asian country with a rich history, vibrant culture, and stunning geography.
Uzbekistan sits in the heart of Central Asia, completely surrounded by other landlocked countries, one of only two double-landlocked nations on Earth. It's a place where water is both sacred and scarce, and nowhere is this tension more visible than at the haunting remains of the Aral Sea. Once the fourth largest lake in the world, the Aral Sea now lies in ruin, a ghost of its former self. Soviet-era irrigation projects redirected the rivers that once fed it, all in the name of boosting cotton production. The result? A water body that has shrunk by more than 90%, leaving behind cracked earth, rusted ships marooned in sand, and broken livelihoods. The dried seabed now fuels toxic dust storms laced with salt and pesticides, sweeping across towns and villages, poisoning lungs and farmlands alike. What was once a cradle of life has become a cautionary tale of unchecked development. And for the communities living nearby, the sea didn't just disappear, it took their future with it. This environmental tragedy is just one layer of a complex nation, where beneath beauty and tradition lies a deep history of resilience and struggle. The gold and cotton powerhouse, Uzbekistan glitters with untapped riches, and not just metaphorically. The country ranks among the top 10 gold producers in the world. Beneath the soil lies a fortune, with massive mining operations pulling out tons of gold each year. But it's not just the glittering metal that defines Uzbekistan's economy. White gold, the nickname for cotton, has long been one of the nation's main exports. Endless fields stretch across the landscape, a legacy of Soviet agricultural policy that turned the region into a cotton empire. But this success has come at a steep cost. Cotton farming here is water-intensive, directly contributing to the environmental disaster of the Aral Sea. Uzbekistan's economy leans heavily on its natural resources. When global prices dip, so does the nation's stability. The soil is rich, but the reliance is risky, and the balancing act continues. And as gold glimmers beneath the surface, on top of it lies a country still shaped by its Soviet past, the Soviet legacy and architectural marvels. To walk through Tashkent, the capital of Uzbekistan, is to walk through a living museum of contrasts. Wide boulevards meet intricate Islamic domes. Brutalist Soviet buildings rise beside ancient madrasas. The city tells a story, one of destruction, reinvention, and identity. In 1966, a massive earthquake leveled much of Tashkent, wiping out thousands of homes and displacing residents. But from the rubble emerged a modern city, rebuilt with Soviet precision. Parks, plazas, and public buildings were constructed in rapid time, leaving behind a legacy of modernist architecture that still defines the skyline today. But remnants of history weren't erased. Islamic design, from blue-tiled mosques to geometric mosaics, still breathes through the city, merging with the Soviet concrete. It's this fusion that makes Uzbekistan visually unique, a place where minarets and Marxist monuments coexist. Yet, while the buildings may stand tall, it's in the streets and kitchens that Uzbekistan's true heart is found. Culinary delights more than just plov. Ask anyone in Uzbekistan what you should eat first, and the answer will always be the same: plov. This rice and meat dish, often cooked in massive cauldrons over open flames, is the national pride. But behind plov lies an entire world of culinary wonders waiting to be discovered. On every corner you'll find street vendors selling samsa, flaky pastry pockets stuffed with spiced meat or pumpkin, baked in clay ovens until golden. Nearby, skewers of shashlik sizzle over hot coals, their smoky aroma tempting passers-by. And always there's bread, round, beautifully stamped loaves that no Uzbek meal is complete without. Food isn't just nourishment here, it's connection. Families gather for long lunches, neighbors trade recipes, and vendors greet you with free samples. Hospitality is baked into every bite, and nowhere is this culture more alive than in the country's bustling bazaars, where all your senses come to life. The bazaar experience, a sensory overload. Step into a traditional Uzbek bazaar and the world shifts. Suddenly, color surrounds you. Vibrant silks, mountain-high piles of spices, rows of golden raisins and walnuts, mounds of fresh produce glowing under the sun. It's more than shopping, it's a sensory adventure. Chorsu Bazaar in Tashkent is one of the most iconic. Here, vendors shout their prices in melodic Uzbek, offering samples of dried apricots or freshly baked bread. Textile sellers invite you to touch hand-woven fabrics, while butchers chop meat beside stalls selling ornate tea sets. It's chaos, but it's beautiful. For tourists, it's a magical maze. But it also comes with caution. Inflated prices, clever scams, and tricky negotiation tactics are part of the game. Still, even amidst the hustle, hospitality shines through. Most vendors will smile, chat, and offer you a taste, not just of food, but of life in Uzbekistan. And despite the traditional setting, Uzbekistan is far from conservative, at least not in the way you might think. Religious tolerance in a predominantly Muslim country. Over 90% of Uzbekistan's population identifies as Muslim, but the country's approach to religion is anything but rigid. Unlike many nations with strong Islamic roots, Uzbekistan embraces a secular government and a surprisingly liberal social atmosphere. Walk the streets of Tashkent or Samarkand and you'll see it firsthand. Women wearing headscarves walk beside others in jeans and sunglasses. Alcohol is openly sold. Nightclubs pulse with energy on the weekends. People practice their faith, or don't, with freedom and mutual respect. This balance wasn't accidental. After gaining independence from the Soviet Union, the government carefully crafted a modern national identity, one that honors tradition but doesn't enforce it. Religion is welcomed but not policed. Belief is private, not political. It's a unique model in Central Asia, and one that's shaped the nation's youthful energy and cultural evolution. Which brings us to the next reality, a country shaped as much by its young as its ancient past. The youthful demographic and migration trends. Look closely at the crowds in Tashkent or Samarkand, and you'll notice something immediately. Uzbekistan is young. Nearly half the population is under the age of 30. This gives the country a vibrant, restless energy. Cafes are filled with students. TikTok trends spread fast, and street art quietly paints the cities with youthful rebellion. Yet beneath this buzz lies an uncomfortable truth. Many young Uzbeks dream not of building a life here, but of leaving. With unemployment high and wages low, thousands of young people leave each year to find work abroad, mostly in Russia, South Korea, or parts of Europe. It's not just about money. It's about opportunity, self-expression, and escaping the limits of tradition. For many families, the money sent back, remittances, is the only thing keeping them afloat. This growing migration has become a defining feature of modern Uzbekistan. It's reshaping the economy, the culture, and even family structures. The country is brimming with ambition, but not always the means to support it. And while the youth search for futures elsewhere, back home, another system is trying to stay afloat. High literacy amidst challenges. Uzbekistan proudly boasts one of the highest literacy rates in the world, over 99%. But behind that statistic lies a system stretched thin. While most children learn to read and write, the education they receive often lacks quality, consistency, and depth, especially in rural areas. Corruption, underfunding, and outdated curricula plague the system. Teachers are overworked and underpaid. In many schools, technology is minimal, and students rely on rote memorization rather than critical thinking. Private tutoring has become a booming underground economy, often the only way students can pass national exams. Despite these issues, efforts are underway to modernize the system. New reforms promise digital classrooms, better training for teachers, and broader access in remote villages. But progress is slow, and many children, especially girls in conservative regions, still face barriers to completing their education. It's a complicated picture, one of great potential held back by the past. And speaking of barriers, nature itself plays a powerful role in shaping life in Uzbekistan. From scorching summers to harsh winters, life in Uzbekistan is defined by extremes. not just in culture, but in climate. It's a country where the land itself can feel hostile, unforgiving, and yet still deeply beautiful. In the southern deserts, summer temperatures routinely soar beyond 50 degrees, turning city streets into ovens and farmland into cracked earth. In the northern and mountainous regions, winter descends with biting winds and temperatures that plunge well below freezing. It's a land caught between fire and ice. These extremes aren't just seasonal nuisances, they shape every part of life. Agriculture, one of the country's most vital sectors, is at the mercy of these shifts. In the summer months, droughts are common and entire crops can fail without warning. The rivers, once fed by glaciers and snowmelt, are beginning to run dry. Irrigation systems, many built during the Soviet era, struggle to keep up with modern demands. And in some regions, farmers rely on outdated techniques that leave them vulnerable to the whims of weather. The architecture reflects this battle with the elements. Traditional homes, especially in rural areas, are constructed with thick walls of clay and mud to insulate against both heat and cold. Roofs are flat, designed to trap cool air. In older neighborhoods, narrow alleyways create natural shade, channeling breezes through hot cities. Even clothing is a response to climate. Long, flowing robes block the sun while allowing airflow, and thick felt coats are still worn in mountain villages. The psychological impact of this climate is real. In blistering summers, daily routines shift. People rise early, rest through midday heat, and return to work at dusk. In winter, communities huddle together, conserving warmth in body and spirit. There's a kind of forced humility that comes with living in a place where nature always has the final say. Yet, even amid these extremes, life finds a rhythm. Markets stay open, weddings still happen, and children still play in the snow or dust. Resilience here is not a slogan, it's survival. And just as Uzbekistan has adapted to its climate, it has also learned to move, to connect, even in its most remote corners. That journey continues, underground, on rails, and into the future. From Soviet-era metros to modern high-speed trains, the moment you descend into Tashkent's metro system, you're not just stepping underground, you're stepping into history. Built in 1977 as the first metro in Central Asia, this Soviet-era masterpiece is more than a mode of transport. It's a museum beneath the earth. Chandeliers hang like frozen constellations. Marble columns line the platforms with solemn elegance. Murals and mosaics tell the story of Uzbekistan's Soviet past and its cultural pride. Every station feels like a portal to a different time, one that honors art, ideology, and identity all at once. Yet Uzbekistan hasn't clung to the past. It's moving, fast. Today, modern high-speed trains glide across the country's plains, connecting historic cities like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Tashkent with surprising ease. The Afrosiab train, Uzbekistan's pride, slices travel time dramatically. What once was a grueling day-long journey by road can now be covered in mere hours, in air-conditioned comfort, with Wi-Fi, quiet cabins, and smooth efficiency that rivals Europe's best. These trains are more than steel and speed. They symbolize a nation striving to modernize, to invite the world in, and to reconnect its own people with their heritage. Tourists ride them to ancient Silk Road cities. Locals use them to reach family, universities, and new jobs. They are arteries of motion, breathing life into a country that spans mountains, deserts, and oases. On the road, though, the picture is different. Uzbekistan's streets are dominated by one brand, Chevrolet. This isn't by accident. It's the result of a strategic deal between the Uzbek government and international automakers. Local manufacturing partnerships made Chevrolets not only common, but practically monopolistic. Drive through Tashkent, and you'll see wave after wave of the same model, a visible outcome of economic planning wrapped in metal and glass. In Uzbekistan, transportation isn't just about moving from A to B, it's about how history and innovation coexist. How every train, every car, and every metro tunnel carries with it a story of power, of adaptation, and of ambition. And as these systems evolve, they don't just carry passengers, they carry the country's hopes toward its future. And it's in the hands of its people, especially its artisans, where the spirit of tradition keeps pace with change. The revival of arts and crafts. In a globalized world, many traditions fade. But in Uzbekistan, the past is held in the hands of artisans. Cities like Khiva, Samarkand, and Bukhara are not just UNESCO heritage sites. They're living workshops. Here, carpet weavers, ceramicists, and woodworkers carry on ancient crafts with stunning precision. These aren't souvenirs, they're stories. Each stitch, each brush stroke, passed down from father to son, mother to daughter. The colors are bold, the patterns are ancient, and the pride runs deep. In a society where modernity often clashes with heritage, these crafts stand as symbols of identity. Markets overflow with hand-embroidered fabrics, hand-painted plates, and silk so fine it slips through fingers like water. Tourists come for the beauty, but what they often don't see is the struggle. Artisans compete with mass production and changing tastes, trying to keep traditions alive in a fast-changing world. And perhaps no story reflects this tension between progress and preservation more than the Aral Sea itself, a tragedy, still unfolding. The Aral Sea disaster, a cautionary tale. Decades ago, the Aral Sea was alive. Fishing boats dotted its surface, villages thrived on its shores, and generations grew up swimming in its waters. Today, it's a desert, a graveyard of rusting ships and broken dreams. The sea didn't just vanish, it was taken. Soviet irrigation projects diverted the rivers that fed the Aral Sea, all to fuel cotton production. What remained was a slow-motion disaster. Salinity soared, fisheries collapsed, entire ecosystems died, and the people left to breathe in clouds of toxic dust that now swirl where waves once crashed. The region around the Aral is plagued with health problems, cancers, respiratory diseases, birth defects. Economies crumbled and many fled. Those who stayed live in a landscape where nature itself feels abandoned. But hope, like water, finds a way. Awareness is growing. International efforts are replanting lost trees, creating windbreaks, and even organizing cultural festivals like Stihia to draw attention to what was lost. The Aral Sea is a wound, but it's also a warning. And Uzbekistan, a nation of breathtaking contrasts, stands today at the intersection of heritage, resilience, and responsibility.